Thank you so much, Charlene, and to Mason and my co-presenter, Patty Ortiz. My name is Marnie Rubin, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I've been watching Parent Venture Series presentations for many years. I have a high school teen at Sequoia High School, and this is a very important program to me. I'm going to quickly exit my screen here. Thank you, Zoom. Just getting everything going here. And now we can see the slides, and I'd love to get started, tell you about the Be Smart program, which, as Mason said, developed by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund to bring together parents and all adults concerned about kids, guns, and safety. And next slide, please. I'm grateful to be here with you today to talk about the life-saving message of secure gun storage. Before we begin, let's agree on a few things that are important to the Be Smart message. First, we all want kids to grow up happy and healthy. I think we can agree on that. Second, we each have the right to make responsible decisions about how to protect our homes, families, and communities, including whether or not to have a gun in our home. And third, if we can prevent even one child gun death or injury, it's our responsibility to do so. We're not here to talk about laws or policies this evening, so let's set those aside for now. Next slide, please. Be Smart is a program to bring together all adults, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, that are concerned about kids, guns, and safety. Before we begin, I did want to mention that we'll be talking about stories of gun violence and suicide. And we know living through these experiences is devastating, and hearing about them can be difficult. We'll have resources throughout the presentation for anybody who needs them. Next slide, please. It's a heartbreaking fact that in the US, firearms are the leading cause of death for children. Let me repeat that. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for children in the US. This is a public health crisis. More than 1,800 children under the age of 18 are killed with guns every year, an average of 5 children every day. When children are killed with guns, the majority of those deaths, 54%, are homicides. And that's 1,000 children per year. Additionally, nearly 700 children die by firearm suicide each year, and 100 are unintentionally shot and killed at things like playdates and parties. We're here today to talk about how we can prevent tragedies like these. Next slide, please. A shocking 4.6 million children in the US live in a household with at least one loaded and unlocked gun. While school shootings and mass shootings typically make more national headlines, almost all child unintentional shooting deaths occur in the home. And the Secret Service found that 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or a close relative. We may all approach this issue from different perspectives. Many of you may be parents, some of you may be gun owners, and some of you may not be. Some of you may have had a personal experience with guns, and some of you may have even been impacted by gun violence. We believe that most gun owners want to be responsible gun owners. So we're here today to talk about what all of us, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, can do to make sure that children and teens do not have unsupervised access to guns. The next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see just a few headlines from across the country. Although we know there are many more incidents that go unreported, behind each headline are real lives that have been impacted. Most of you remember the news in November of 2021 about a 15-year-old teen at Oxford High School in Michigan who shot and killed 4 students and wounded several others. He was armed with a handgun recently purchased by his father. In July of 2022, a 3-year-old boy was shot after being left alone in a car with a gun in Pennsylvania. The lower left article talks about 2 teenage boys hospitalized in August of 2022 after being shot in what investigators believe to be a murder-suicide attempt in Texas. And last, in the bottom right, is a story about the Virginia teacher who was shot in her classroom by a 6-year-old student on January 6th of this year. The family said that the gun used was allegedly secured before the shooting. They also said a family member usually went to class with the boy, but not the week of the incident. This investigation is ongoing. All 4 of these stories show the consequences of when young people get their hands on guns that are not appropriately secured. No story is quite the same, but all are tragic and preventable. So next slide, please. So what can we do right now? Gun owners and non-gun owners alike can all take action in their homes and their communities to keep our kids safe. Together, we can learn to be smart, as you can see from our backgrounds, shirts, and our presentation. That SMART is an acronym, and I'll go over that right now. S stands for secure, M for model, A for ask, R for recognize, and T for tell. So we'll go through each of these individually to see what we can do to prevent gun violence and protect our kids and teens. Next slide, please. Let's start with S, which is secure your guns in homes and vehicles. 13 million households with children contain at least one gun, and the majority of children in gun-owning households actually know where the gun is stored. So what do I mean by securing guns? It's fairly simple, and Everytown research suggests that gun owners store their firearms in 3 steps. First, unload the gun, removing all ammunition, including any chambered rounds. Second, lock the unloaded firearm with a locking device or in a locked location, such as a gun safe. And 3, store the ammunition in a separate, secure location. This is the S in SMART, meaning securing guns in both homes and vehicles. On the next slide, please, I'd like to just mention a few of the options for keeping guns secure. We have a full-size gun safe, a lockbox or locker, and these are all items that are affordable and easily accessed. There's also a console or vehicle gun safe for everybody, for anyone who stores a gun in their vehicle if they need to. We know that you may have specific questions about what secure storage looks like in practice. And contrary to popular belief, locking up guns doesn't prevent owners from readily accessing their guns. There's a common myth that storage devices negate the self-defense purpose of owning a gun by putting time-consuming barriers between the gun owner and their means of defense. The reality is that there are many affordable options, as shown, for secure storage that provide owners with access to guns in a matter of seconds, while still preventing access by children and people at increased risk of harming themselves or others. Further, it's really possible that unsecured guns may actually increase the likelihood of crime and violence through an increased risk of gun theft. So locking up guns will help to reduce the risk of firearm suicide, unintentional firearm injury, and also help to prevent firearm theft. Did you know that at least 2 guns are stolen every 15 minutes? It's important to also remember to lock up any guns in cars, as I mentioned. More than half of stolen guns are taken from cars. Just putting a gun under a seat or in the glove compartment is not considered secure storage. As I mentioned, there are gun lock boxes as well available for purchase at most retail and sporting goods stores. Next slide, please. I've also showing here a few other options for secure storage, including a gun case, trigger locks, or cable locks. So these are available at varying price points and at any sporting goods stores, and possibly even through your local law enforcement agencies. So next slide, please. And on this slide, we'll talk about the M in SMART, which is model responsible behavior. Every law-abiding adult has the right to decide whether or not to have a gun in the home. But you can't rely on curious kids not to find a gun. Kids know where their parents store their guns, and more than 1/3 reported handling their parents' guns. Nearly a quarter of parents did not know that their children had handled the gun in their house. It's always an adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious child's responsibility to avoid guns. Talk to your kids about gun safety, but remember, that's a precaution and not a guarantee. One study found that young children who go through a week-long gun safety training are just as likely as children with no training to approach or play with a handgun if and when they find one. Parents and caregivers should teach children not to touch a gun if they come across one, real or pretend, and to alert an adult. Modeling responsible behavior means that smart adults make sure that kids don't have the opportunity to access guns. There are handouts and resources for best practices for talking to children and teens about guns on our website, and that's besmartforkids.org/resources. And a lot of these resources and links will be in the chat. So next slide, please. I'd like to go through quickly some tips for talking with children and adolescents about what to do if they come across a firearm and keeping themselves safe. First, should always make it a part of the normal safety conversation you have with your children. You talk with them about pools in the backyard and all sorts of different safety issues, and this should be a conversation you can have as well. You can keep the language simple. For example, say, if you see a gun, don't touch it, and tell an adult right away. Tell children not to touch a gun, even if it looks like a toy. Assure children they will not get in trouble if they tell an adult that they've seen a gun. And repeat this on a regular basis, conversation that can be had multiple times. When talking to adolescents or teens, you can, again, include this in your general safety conversations about topics like drugs, alcohol, and drunk driving. Tell them to immediately leave any situation where an unsecured gun is present. Tell them not to listen to a friend who says a gun is unloaded or otherwise safe. Give your team strategies to get out of a situation where a gun is present, or brainstorm with them. Perhaps you can agree that your team would say, "Mom just texted me that I have to get home right away," and assist them with that. Assure teens that it's okay to ask about the presence of unsecured guns in other homes, but offer to do it for them if they don't feel comfortable. So for example, if teens are babysitting or going to a party at a home. And for all ages, again, don't have the conversation only once. Talk to them frequently, just as you would about other crucial safety issues. Make sure they understand that any situation where there's an unsupervised gun is a dangerous situation. So talking to children and teens about guns is only a precaution, not a guarantee of safety. Next slide, please. The next slide, we'll talk about the A, which is a very important letter in the SMART acronym, and A stands for ask, asking about unsecured guns in other homes. As we've mentioned, there are approximately 4.6 million US children living in a household with at least one loaded and unlocked gun. That's why you need to ask about firearms in other homes your child or teen visits. So this is the A in SMART. For the parents and caretakers in the room, just think of some safety questions you ask about before allowing your child to go to someone else's home. Examples are potential allergens or pets in the home, car seats for rides, who will be home for the play date or the teen event? What about TV and screen time or alcohol access? These are all things that you could normally ask about before letting your child or teen go to someone else's home. Next slide, please. Asking about guns in the home should be as natural as asking about any other safety issue. If it seems awkward at first, try making it a part of your general safety conversation. You might try asking via email or text if you're uncomfortable at first. And we have some samples right here for you to look at. And yes, it is okay for you to text or email. You don't have to have a conversation in person or on the phone. Try it during, try texting first if that's more comfortable for you, but make sure to ask a question. And again, here's some examples. So we can ask, tell them your child's not allergic to anything. One other safety question: do you have guns? You guys have guns in the home? I know kids are curious and just want to make sure that if you do have any, that they are securely stored. And the response: screen time is okay, just in case they want to play. And then no guns is the response. Great. Yes, video games are okay. So you see that it could be as simple as no guns in our home. If there are guns in the home, you would want to double check whether they are securely stored and how, so that there is no possibility of access for the children or teens. And we have another example where a parent actually says that there is a gun in the home and that they have found it, that one of the children has found it and knows exactly where it is. So just recommending that you have to lock up that gun. So these are really crucial. The A in SMART is ask, and that's a really crucial part of keeping children safe, especially on play dates in other people's homes where you might have less control over what they're doing, and teens as well. And next slide, please, which shows R. Let's talk about the recognizing the role of guns in suicide, which is the R in SMART. Access to a gun can mean the difference between life and death in this situation. Firearm suicide is uniquely lethal. We know that 90% of suicide attempts using a gun end in death, and that half of suicides in the US are gun suicides. It's a much higher fatality rate than any other means of self-harm. Research shows 70% of people who survive a suicide attempt will never attempt suicide again. We also know that 41% of child suicides involve a gun. As our children get older, you may need to consider taking another look at your storage methods. If you've been using a simple cable lock, you may want to think about getting a gun safe. We all know how curious children can be. So as they get older and more resourceful, and their friends get the same, grow older and more resourceful as well, you will need to act accordingly. In addition, if you know that your loved one is in distress, you might want to consider temporarily removing a gun from your home. Local law enforcement may be willing to temporarily store your guns, but call ahead. Some licensed gun dealers or ranges may be willing to temporarily store your guns, or you could temporarily store your guns in the home of a friend or family member. Of course, to manage risk for that friend or family member, you should lock any guns that you transfer and not provide the key or the code. Depending on the law in your state, The person agreeing to store the guns may first need a background check at a gun dealer or through law enforcement. But this can be an option if there is someone in your home that is in distress. Next slide, please. The National Youth Survey conducted by the CDC showed that 20% of high school students had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. One study showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households report having easy access, quote unquote, to the guns in their home. Research shows that secure firearm storage is associated with a decreased risk of child firearm suicide. Next slide, please. And these are some of the signs to look for when concerned that a loved one may be suicidal. And those are prolonged sadness and depression, changes in mood or behavior, hopelessness, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing, isolation, aggression or agitation, increased alcohol or drug use, talking about killing themselves, and giving away belongings. These are all signs to look out for. And next slide, please. We have some important resources to contact in case you or a loved one someone you care about may need help. We also have resources again on the besmartforkids.org/resources website. But as you'll see here, we list the National Suicide Prevention Line, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and the Trevor Project, which addresses specifically LGBTQIA+ youth. You can also text HOME to 741-741 from anywhere in the US. But these are all up again on our website. We also have resources if you or someone you know is a survivor of gun violence. We can connect you with the Everytown Survivor Network. It's a nationwide community of survivors working together to end gun violence. And all of the services are free. It's another great resource. Next slide, please. And the last slide that we have is the T in SMART, which is tell. And this is the real power of the Be Smart campaign. You tell. How will you commit to being smart today? Sharing the Be Smart message is the way that we can save lives, and by spreading awareness. So take just a few moments and think about, who are you going to tell to be smart today? Maybe text a friend or a family member, or think of 3 organizations right now that you think should hear this message. Write them down, or we'll be giving out our contact information at the end, and please contact us. But when you tell 3 organizations or 3 friends or 3 family members, we had over 80 people or more register for this call. So imagine at 240 different people that could be told about the Be Smart program and what a big effect that can have. So next slide. We're very proud to collaborate with multiple stakeholders with the Be Smart program, including the County of San Mateo Office of Education on this call, and the Coalition for Safe Schools, multiple school districts and superintendents, and many, many others. And we would look forward to presenting to any organization or group of parents that would want to hear this Be Smart message. So on the slide, you'll see Patty and myself at school safety symposium and at school district meetings. And that's the way that we'll spread the Be Smart message. So on the last slide, I'd just like to go through the acronym once more. SMART, so that's secure. M for model responsible behavior. Ask about any unsecured guns in other homes. Recognize the role of guns in suicide. And then tell tell your peers, tell your contacts, tell everyone you know about the Be Smart program, and help us spread the word about this important and effective program. And on our last slide, I'd like to give out our contact information for the Peninsula and San Mateo County Moms Demand Action Be Smart leads, myself and Patty Ortiz, who you'll be hearing from in just a couple minutes. And I'm Marnie Rubin. I'd also like to have you can go ahead and text the word SMART to 64433, and you can learn more about how you can help and get involved. Again, that's text SMART to 64433, and you'll see that right here on the slide. And please contact us with any questions or information you might need. With that, I'd like to say thank you so much for spending your evening here with us today. I'd like to also ask if there are any questions about the presentation or about gun safety in general, and we'll go ahead and manage those all through the Q&A and chat. So thank you again so much for being here, and I'll turn it over back to Charlene.
Thank you so much, Marnie Rubin, for your volunteerism and for this incredibly important conversation. I learned a lot. I thought that I knew about gun safety, but this was really amazing. So again, joining us for the Q&A is Mason Henricks, who is the coordinator for school safety and risk prevention at San Mateo County Office of Ed. So let's start with kind of an easy one, maybe. Marnie, don't storage devices put barriers between the gun owner and their means of defense, thus defeating the purpose of owning a gun in the first place?
Yes, as we've talked about, and I'm going to invite my co-presenter Patty to hop on at any time as well. But as we have talked about in the presentation, this is a myth that many, and a fear that many people have, that the reason that they have a firearm in the house is to protect themselves. But some of again, we have the gun safes and biometric different vehicles for them to keep any firearm secure, and they can literally get it access to it within a matter of seconds. These kinds of vehicles, though, help prevent other people from accessing their guns, which actually is statistically more likely to happen, that their gun is accessed by somebody who they don't want to have it, or it's stolen. So having these, there are ways, and again, I didn't go through them I went through very quickly, but we do have handouts and resources that let you access your gun within a matter of seconds to protect your family or yourself if you need to.
So here's a related question, Marnie. Writer asks, why don't you advocate for smart weapons manufactured to only fire when the designated owner pulls the trigger?
It's a great suggestion as well. We feel that this Be Smart framework is important for a lot of different reasons. And I feel that, yes, smart weapons would be great. And I believe they were brought up in over the last few years. There have been people have tried to bring them up, legislators have tried to actually have them be popular, and just hasn't necessarily gone anywhere. It's not part necessarily of the Be Smart program, and it may be something that Moms Demand Action or Everytown for gun safety legislates for. I'm not sure at this time, but the Be Smart framework, we feel, touches on a lot of those issues for gun safety.
Thank you, Marnie. Mason, here's a question for you. We all know that gun violence and school shootings are such a touch point in the U.S. right now. What are schools in San Mateo County doing to ensure that schools are safe for kids?
We have a lot of different protocols and prevention strategies that we use in San Mateo County. We have 23 school districts. So every school district operates on its own, but the County Office of Ed provides support, technical support, consultation, and training on our countywide protocols. So we have different types of countywide protocols that help identify students who are at risk of committing acts of targeted school violence, but we also have things like parent nights, like tonight, to recommend and to encourage the safe firearm storage. We have a whole team that does prevention work in trying to prevent acts of bullying and increase positive school climate on school campus, because we know that positive school climate is one of the best prevention measures for school violence. And that's really where our focus is right now, is to prevent school violence by increasing positive school climate, school connectedness, and a sense of belonging for all students.
Thank you, Mason. Really important words. So this question is for any of you. What do you do if your child has a mental health issue? Is it still okay to own a gun if it's safely locked and stored?
Well, California has some of the strongest gun sense laws around this, and there has been several efforts from our incredible lawmakers to try to pass laws that we have what are called red flag laws, where even if you haven't broken one of our federal or big state laws yet, or committed the type of crimes that would usually require firearms to be removed, but we think you are at risk of exercising violence through guns, guns can be removed. One of the extreme risk laws that have been tried to pass unsuccessfully in the past is actually what happens when someone that is not the gun owner in that household could be a danger to themselves and others. The feeling right now is that it infringes in the gun owner's rights because it's not them who are at risk. But going back to Mason's point, San Mateo County Office of Ed and the Coalition for Schools and Communities, and Mason can speak better, has fantastic resources around suicide risk prevention and how to support a family navigating that and what to do. As Marnie said, if you can convince a family to remove the guns from the house voluntarily, that is the absolute best thing you can do for that child and for everyone around them. But Mason could probably speak to the big five better than me, but it is a phenomenal resource with great experts that you can call on to support you, and that your school can call on to support you.
Yeah, we definitely recommend temporarily removing any thing that might allow a teenager or a child to be able to go forward with an act of suicide. We want to make sure that they are set up for success, especially if they're getting treatment, they're getting connected to services. We work with our sheriff's department. We work with all of our municipalities, our law enforcement jurisdictions, to make sure that they will receive any firearms for safekeeping. If a student or a child of yours is going through a mental health crisis, you can go ahead and turn in your firearms temporarily, and that way they're out of the house. But also, having safe and secure storage, just making sure that the code is something that, if it is a code and not a thumbprint, that the code is something that your child would not be able to guess. So no birthdays, no anniversaries, things that your kids will know.
Okay, fair enough. So for someone who may be very unfamiliar with guns, we know that the A in SMART is really important. How do you open this conversation? Asking about a gun seems very different than asking about screen time.
Well, I'll go ahead and take that. Are you okay, Charlene?
Yes, I'm fine.
So the A in SMART is one of the key things. It's in the center. You'll see it there, but it's in the center, and it's almost the centerpiece of the Be Smart program because it's so effective. And what we are trying to do is normalize that conversation. And again, what other safety aspects do you normally ask about for any age child? From everything from babies on up, peanut allergies, or there's just so many different things. And we just would like to take the judgment out of gun ownership and not say, oh, you have a gun, or have any sort of judgmental ideas about that, and just be honest and ask if they are a gun owner to make sure that that gun is securely stored. It's not for you to say whether they should have a gun or not have a gun in the house. It's whether it is securely stored, whether any child or teen can get access to it. And you know, again, texting, just making this part of the normal questions that you would ask, even and just texting or emailing might make it a lot easier. But it is a normal, we're hoping to normalize this and have you do it. You know, how many play dates might you have every week, you know, and it will get easier as you do it several times. So hopefully that answers your question and other people's questions on that too. Oh, you're on mute.
In the minutes that we have left, I would like to give each of you 30 seconds just for some final comments. Patty, I'm going to start with you.
I would reinforce what Marnie just said. Do not be shy about it. The more we normalize it, I think the Bay Area is a pioneer at normalizing conversations, changing narratives, opening perspectives. Please, please think of your child. One of our ally organizations is Ethan's Law, who started after their child died by playing in a gun at a friend's house. The last thing those parents thought when that child went into a play date is that they would find a gun. So just take the leap, normalize conversations. They'll be way better received than you think.
Thank you, Patty. Great advice. Marnie, how about you?
Well, as I mentioned, I have a team in the San Mateo County schools. I'm nervous often to send, you know, her to school. I'm sure many of you feel anxiety about many different situations about gun safety. And this program to me feels like a very effective method for gun violence prevention. It's the thing that has really helped me feel that there is something we can do. And we can all do it together. We can amplify our message. And so if you'd like to do something about our national problem, even though California is safer, quote unquote, maybe, please get involved with the Be Smart program or look into other organizations that help with gun violence prevention. There is something that we can do together.
Thank you, Marnie. And Mason, I know that school safety is your life's work now. I'd like to give you the final word.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to take it to actually where Marnie did, is that I'm a parent of two students in the San Mateo County schools. And as a parent, it's really important for me that their schools are safe, that they feel like they can go to school and learn and have fun and not worry about something tragic happening at their schools. And so I work really hard with my colleagues and all the other educators in this county to ensure the safety of our students. But taking that step and just securing your own firearms at home really helps us be able to focus on other things rather than having firearms on school campus. If they're secured, students don't have access to them. And that really does prevent a lot of tragedies from happening, whether they're accidental or they're intentional tragedies. So I would love for me to be out of a job soon. So, and I don't need to be working in school safety and that not to be a problem. So hopefully programs like Be Smart and activists like that, Moms Demand Action, can really help put me out of a job eventually. It'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mason Hendricks and Marnie Rubin and Patty Ortiz. Thank you, everybody who's been on with us for this very important conversation. We will be starting again in about 10 minutes with this program in Spanish with Patty. So again, stay on if you would like Spanish. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Take care, and we hope to see you again soon.